Yo, what's up, guys? So let me change my stream title really fast. This is a WoW State of the Union. You guys are wondering, what the hell is a State of the Union? Basically, all I want to do is, yesterday after receiving the news that WoW has been down in so many subscribers, what did it go down from? Like 11 million to 7 million or something like that? Lost like roughly 3 million subscribers, something around there. Fly still undone, bro? No, it wasn't! You made me look, man, what the hell? Anyways, me and Mez were talking about stuff that they could do for PvP, so these ideas I'm bringing to you aren't all my own. I must give credit to Mez. Give credit where credit's due. And some of the things we talked about is a lot. Okay, so something that PvPers always talk about is balance in this game. And I don't think that perfect balance is what makes the game fun. So I want to start off by saying that. Even a game like League of Legends, if we look at how many classes are there in WoW. Let's take a look really fast. This is like my little intro, I guess. And I want to say originally I was going to do this in like a YouTube video so I could take multiple takes, but I decided to just YOLO it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, with 3 specs each, 33 specs that essentially need to be balanced. And if some are better than the other, people get very upset. And I think it's very unrealistic in a game like World of Warcraft, where classes have so many different talents, so many different abilities, to have perfect balance. So I want to start off by saying that I don't think that's necessarily the reason why World of Warcraft isn't that fun right now. I think, Venruki, what is your position on scripts? Yeah, 34 specs. Whatever. You know what you get the gist of what I'm saying. Those are all technicalities. But even in a game like League of Legends, people always like to compare WoW to MOBAs. A game like League has many, many champions. Most of them only have like 4 or 5 abilities, a couple summoner abilities, and a game like that isn't even balanced. There's always heroes that are better, heroes that are worse, but ultimately it doesn't matter that much. I think a big problem for World of Warcraft right now is that there hasn't been anything new for PvP in a long time. This expansion was the introduction of Ashran, and that didn't go over very well. I think it had good intentions. It was trying to be like the old school AV, but it just didn't work out and ended up not being any fun whatsoever. So essentially, since the introduction of rated battlegrounds, which I think was in Cataclysm, PvPers haven't had anything new to do. They have 2v2, which most people don't like, duels, which some people like, but there's no real way to do them in a fun, competitive way. I guess you can just go outside Durotar and duel people randomly, but it would be fun if there was like some sort of coliseum for duels to be done in that people could spectate and watch, maybe even put gold on the line for duels. Something like that could be interesting. 2v2, like I said, some people enjoy it. 3v3, obviously the standard, the benchmark for World of Warcraft. That's where tournaments are done. We have 5v5 that is completely and utterly useless, and no one plays 5v5 whatsoever. It's actually something I really like, and I think in that number of players is when I feel like specific class balance doesn't matter quite as much. 5v5, there's lots of different comps you can run. It's part of the reason why I like it so much. You don't necessarily feel the abilities that are super imbalanced. And I think in World of Warcraft, the more players you have, so obviously in duels, super imbalanced, 2v2 imbalanced, 3v3, some people consider it imbalanced, but it's pretty, I mean, there's some good matchups, same in duels and in 2v2s, but in 5v5 it starts to get a little bit more interesting. And then even in RPGs, there still is issues where classes are too powerful or some comps are too strong, but it's not as prevalent as in like the lower numbers, like 1-on-1 to 2v2. So that's why. Oh, okay. So let me finish. So there's 2v2, 3v3, 5v5 duels, and then we have RPGs, and then we have World PvP and Ashran and Battlegrounds. Battlegrounds haven't changed in a long time. Like I said, rated battlegrounds are essentially just battlegrounds. It's the same thing. What I would like to see, these. Okay. I have a lot of ideas that I've written down. I'm trying to think about the best way to present these to you guys. Okay, so let's talk about. Okay, let's talk about. I'm a little OCD, so I'm going to be moving around in game while I talk about this. Let's talk about just queuing arena right now. Queuing arena, it's pretty fun. You log on right now. I mean, I play pretty much every single day. I play during the day, even playing at night sometimes. You just queue, and normally I sit at around the same rating depending on what I queue. Even when I queue with like my main team, which is on my Windwalker with Carvenin, Mez, and obviously myself, we fluctuate in rating. We go from around 2600 to around 2850, sometimes even up to 2900 MMR. Just depends on what's queuing, who we're fighting against, how the session goes, and that's some pretty crazy influx, I think, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But for the most part, outside of like that main team where I'm really going up in rating and winning every games, it seems really hard at the moment to push rating. And I think that's an issue. I think something that needs to be implemented into World of Warcraft, especially like RPGs and Arena, is rating inflation. And not just a little bit of rating inflation, but I think constantly throughout the season, it should be easier and easier to gain rating. And I think this solves a number of different problems. First off, it gives players a feeling that they're going up in rating. So at the start of a season, someone who's potentially 1500 would eventually, with inflation, make their way up to maybe 1800. Obviously, the 1800 player would go up to 2100, 2100 up to 2400. These aren't exact numbers, but I think if this is something you implement, it not only makes queuing arena a little bit more fun because you're constantly building up your rating and working on your rating. It promotes people to queue, because if you're just stuck at, like, say someone's queuing and they're just stuck at 2000 rating the entire season, it doesn't really feel like they're improving, whereas with inflation, it gives the illusion that you're actually going up in rating. And then on the higher end scheme of things, it also forces people that are high rated to queue. So people that at the beginning of the season maybe get really high rated and they're just sitting on their rating, they can't just sit on the rating because inflation's creeping up on them, and people that are actively queuing the game are going to be actively gaining a lot of rating, and it forces people's hand in actually playing the game more, which I think ultimately makes the game more fun for everybody. So rating inflation in RPGs and Arena, I think, is a very, very good thing. And like I said, not just a little inflation. When a season goes on for as long as this has, 6 months? At this point, it almost feels impossible to catch up to the highest rated people on the ladder, unless like you literally don't lose at all, or you have like an amazing, amazing queue session. Okay. So rating inflation is one thing. And then in terms of like new content, like I said, we haven't really gotten anything new except Ashran, which I had good intentions but didn't work out. I think that there could be a lot of really easily implemented things for WoW that would make it more fun and sort of spice it up a little bit. So instead of a 5v5 bracket, I think that in World of Warcraft we could easily have lower group size objective-based PvP. So instead of doing 5v5 arena, which nobody at all plays, so I don't think anyone would miss it that much, maybe doing specific objective-based RBGs for 5v5, maybe even spice it up even more by having like a three-way team. You could have a Horde, Alliance, and like an Outlanders group, something like that, and you'd have really interesting matchups in like a map like Arathi Basin, or maybe a new map where like 3 teams of 5 are going at it, and you actually have 3 teams competing for a win, or even if it's just 5 versus 5 on like a King of the Hill type map, or like an Arathi Basin type map, or a Capture the Flag type map. I think that could add a lot of spice into the game and fix a bracket that's right now really, really, really dead, this 5v5 bracket. So that's one idea I had. What else that Mez had? Oh, something else is in PvP, when we get like a content patch, PvEers get like a new instance and they get new gear and just new bosses to fight against. For us in PvP, we get essentially a new set of gear and a different word in front of the name Gladiator. So whatever the word is, I don't know, it's going to be next season. Something, this all the gear, just the first word basically changes and the gear looks a little bit different, and that's essentially all that happens. There's a little bit of class balance, but we don't really get anything new. So I was thinking that what might be fun is real-time rewards. So instead of like at the end of the season getting your rank 1 titles, which would still be a thing, throughout the season your titles, you gain and lose titles. So if you're in rank 1 range, you get a rank 1 title. If you're in gladiator range, you get a gladiator title. You could even do things where like if you're in gladiator range, you get like a special set of gear. So I know right now they added, basically once you get your full gear and you have additional conquests and you have enough rating, you can go and you can get this set that's basically just a transmog set. Imagine instead of like spending additional conquests on that, if you're in gladiator range, you get this like cool set of gear where now you look different than everyone else, but you lose it. So this would say like requires gladiator title in order to use. You put it on, and if you fall out of gladiator range, you can no longer use it. So you no longer get the gladiator gear. Same could be said for rank 1. If you get a rank 1 title, maybe you get like a really cool weapon. I know challenge mode weapons are really neat. A lot of people do the 5-man challenge modes to get those. It would be really cool if someone is in rank 1 range that they get to actually use those weapons as well. So you get some sort of like real-time rewards for your effort in arena, and actually forces people to want to queue and want to gain rating and want to go up in the ladder and keep playing active. Just gives you some sort of incentive and reward to actually play the game, I think. Let me see what you guys are saying. And the gear, like, someone wanted to clarify, like that, the gear would just purely be vanity. It wouldn't give you any sort of additional buff or stats, but you could have really cool weapons, like a warglaive type weapon, a legendary weapon. It could be the PvPer's equivalent of a legendary weapon, like getting in rank 1 range or getting in like gladiator range. And I think it would really make people actually want to queue the ladder. But like I said, another part of that is inflation. Like there has to be inflation, so people are constantly wanting to queue and wanting to gain rating, and people can't just sit on rating. Another thing I was thinking about, or me and Maz were thinking about, was I don't know if any of you guys played Warcraft 3 back in the day, but something that seems relatively easy to implement would be, well, actually something that they implemented in Warcraft 3 that they haven't implemented in any of their previous games is weekly tournaments. I don't even know if it's weekly or daily tournaments that are just automatically run within the game itself. It would be really cool if you could go up to like a random guard, say this person, go up to him, and it would say, there's a 3v3 tournament coming up in 1 hour. Would you like to sign up? And you and your team could sign up for a 3v3 tournament. Not necessarily just 3v3. It could be an RBG tournament. It could be a 2v2 tournament. It could be a duel tournament. Anything. And it could be just another way to promote people actually playing and give PvPers a little bit more content. And perhaps if they win that, that could actually be a way to gain rating as well. So say there's a little 3v3 tournament, you sign up for it one Wednesday afternoon or Saturday afternoon or Wednesday evening, whenever the hell. It could be run every day, every couple days, once a week, whatever, just something. Kind of like the Coliseum event. And then if you win, you can actually potentially even gain rating. So it could be a different way of gaining rating outside of the ladder, or you getting some sort of title or reward or something. But I think it would be very fun. It could even be a title that you gain and lose. So like if you win the arena, if you win like a 3v3 arena tournament within the game, you get like some really cool title, and the next week someone else can get it. It's another idea that I had. Auto run tournaments, because I think something that isn't really that hard to implement, like I said, and it could be fun to watch. They could even have like an in-game spectator client for people to watch those. What else did I want to talk about? Oh yeah, so those are some of just my ideas for the game and things that could be implemented. In terms of actual like gameplay, I think a huge problem with the game, and I know there's been posts a lot about this kind of stuff, so I didn't want to touch on it too much, but I think one of the things that doesn't make the game very fun right now is everything is based on cooldowns and CC. And when you're not using cooldowns and when you're not getting CC, your character just doesn't feel effective whatsoever. So as a mage, I know mages are very strong right now. Let me just say that. I know mages are good. They're a very good class. They have a lot of good comps. They can get high rated. whatever. But when you're playing a mage and you're sitting there and you're spamming frost bolts, or you're playing a lock and you're sitting there having full dots on someone, or whatever the case may be, any class that's just sitting there and doing damage without CC and without cooldowns doesn't feel effective whatsoever, at least in my mind, for the most part. And I think that's something that needs to be in the game. I think cooldowns need to be less powerful, and I think healing needs to be toned down a bit, and base damage needs to be up. So when you're sitting there and you are a mage and you get interrupted on Deep Sheep, you don't feel completely helpless, as an example. So I think having to win in setups is not that great, and it also forces people to do very similar strategies. It's just such a rinse and repeat game, you know. It's just you go, you get your Deep Sheep, you set up your Deep Sheep. This is basically how Mage Games plays out. You just go and you get a Deep Sheep, and then you burst someone. And if you don't get the Deep Sheep, then that person is completely fine. That's just how the game goes right now for the most part, and it's just not a very fun or rewarding playstyle. Something else I think needs to be changed within the game is reactive versus proactive abilities. A great example of this is reactive versus proactive. A great example of this, I think, is paladins right now. And I think if you're reacting to something, it doesn't take nearly as much skill or finesse, or it isn't nearly as interesting as proactively dealing with an ability. So imagine as a Holy Pally, there's two different scenarios I want to talk to you about. The first one would be proactively stopping CC. So say you're a Paladin and you're sitting at a pillar and a mage is coming in to Deep Sheep you. If you freed him before the Deep Sheep, imagine that freedom reduced the incoming CC by 50%, some crazy number. So you freed him right before the Deep hit you, he Deeps you and he tries to Sheep you, and both the Deep and the Sheep are 50% less. Now that opens up a lot of different interesting scenarios, I think. The first thing is, as the mage, you can force the freedom on the pally by faking it, so you can go in and blink, and if the pally freedoms, you can not Deep Sheep. So there's a little mind game there that I think keeps the game interesting. Also, as a pally, you can potentially save your freedom, or, like I said, you pre-freedom the Deep Sheep, and you get a huge reward because of it. Right now, it's completely boring. If you're a paladin and you get defrozen, you just freedom yourself. It's just so... You just react to that ability so easily. The game is basically 100% scripted, which I think adds to the game being a little bit boring. Another good example is Shaman Tremor. So I think every single person in the game, this is something I was talking to C2 about, agrees right now that like the way Shaman Tremor was changed this expansion was for the better. Before, if you got feared on the Shaman, you just press Tremor and you're out of it. Now it's a little bit more interesting. If the lock's running at you, you can try to pre-Tremor it. If the lock fears into it, you're rewarded. If he doesn't and he spots it, then you have a chance to get away while he's killing it, or at the same time he can kill it and fear you, which I think is good. I think those little mind games are important throughout the game. It's just like, it's similar to like a priest deathing a sheep. Like that's a really cool interaction. A mage can get CC on you, but you feel like you have a way to prevent it. Being able to prevent something makes it a lot more fun, you know? Like, if you're a priest and you're in the open and you get sheeped, you get full sheeped, you're like, damn, you know, I could have deathed that. I mean, it's still an ability right now, but that's a better feeling than, knowing you could actually prevent CC on you is a better feeling than just getting Deep Sheeped or something like that. Yeah, I hope I didn't hype up this little State of the Union a little bit too much. I just wanted to present some ideas to you guys that I had, and hopefully they get shared. I don't know what your thoughts on them. I haven't really been reading chat while I've been talking about this. Please. Oh yeah, that's another thing that could be done. I suppose another example would be like a warrior berserker raging before a fear hit him, instead of being able to fear out of the... Instead of like getting feared and hitting berserker rage, you pre-berserker rage the fear. That's another interesting interaction, I guess. And another thing I want to say is, the people that actually designed this game, like the PvP developers for this game, they do really care, despite what you guys think despite what people say. They do care. There's a lot of restrictions on them, and I think for what they do a good job. But it's hard, and I think there's a lot that can be done, because this game, it can still be a lot of fun, I think. Yeah, exactly. Those abilities, like Icebound Fortitude, like immuning a kidney with Icebound Fortitude is a lot more rewarding, and it adds like a little mind game, a little mini game within the game, instead of just, oh, kidney Icebound Fortitude, you know? I think that's good. Anyways, I don't want to talk about the specifics too much. Those are just some of the ideas I had. I don't want to talk about garrisons. I just think there's ways to encourage people to play and still like enjoy the game, besides like everyone complaining about balance. I think there's a lot that can be done. Oh yeah, I guess World PvP is another thing I wanted to sort of talk about. I don't have any notes about World PvP. I haven't thought about it too much, but just experiencing World PvP myself, a lot of the time, like, for example, when I'm outside of my garrison and a horde comes and tries to gank me, it's a really weird situation to be in, where, like, you'll get opened on by 2 rogues, and, like, you'll somehow manage to make, like, a really cool comeback, and you're owning, and you're about to kill them, and then they get on a rocket and shoot 9 million miles up in the air, and then get on a little, like, kite thing and fly to the other side of the continent. So, like, there's just these rogues out here ganking me, and you know, I somehow manage to survive. Maybe someone comes out and heals me, and I'm turning around and killing them, and they're like, oh, well, time to do the dip. They shoot straight into the stars, and they just fly to fucking the Shimmer Moor or something like that. And it's impossible to ever catch them. It's just completely absurd. It's ridiculous. And I myself, as an old school World PvPer, I thought it was fun when you risk dying. Like when you were ganking someone and you risk dying, or like they turned it around on you and you had to like call in reinforcements or whatever. I thought that was fun. I thought it made it more exciting and more interesting. Being immune to death in World PvP is really silly, I think. I think getting rid of flying mounts was nice. But ultimately, I don't think World PvP will ever go back to how it was. You think about level 60 and level 70. It was kind of, I don't know. Okay, so if you think way back when, to the days of Azeroth, we go down and we're looking at, what are we looking at? Not Dunmorrow, not New. Oh yeah, we look at Blackrock Mountain. The reason Blackrock Mountain PvP was so fun is because all the high-end PvE content was in that mountain. So as a PvPer, you could sit there and sort of cock-block PvEers from going in. They could get together as a raid and go in. I remember when I used to raid, to prevent us getting ganked, we would go in as an entire group. We didn't have flying mounts to go in, but we could have each other's backs. But if like one person trickled in after another, there was going to be people that ganked them, and it sort of forced people to go out into the world and actually gave PvPers an area to PvP against PvEers, which I thought was fun. Or like Silithus PvP, exactly. Both PvPers, it basically, World PvP is at its most fun when PvEers are forced to go out into the world and we get to gank them, essentially. I mean, it sounds kind of dickish, but that's what's fun. When PvEers are forced to go into a specific zone, and you have the opportunity to gank them. It makes it interesting. Anyways, yeah, I think that was all I really wanted to talk about. I mean, if you guys have any ideas or thoughts or whatever, feel free to talk about it in chat, and maybe I can give you my input or my thoughts on it. The QQ so hard if you force PvP on them? Yeah, maybe. Go to a PvE server. Will you VOD this and miss like 70%? Sure. I can VOD it. You can always go back in my VOD.